Welcome to the Cup of Joe Wrestling Show.
Cup of Joe Wrestling Show?
With Joey Harris. A podcast for the wrestling fan on the go. So take your favorite beverage of choice and join Joey as he takes a look at some of the biggest shows on the WWE Network.
From makeshift studios deep in the heart of stately Maine Manor, this is the Cup of Joe Wrestling Show, and I am your host, Joey Harris. You can follow the show's Twitter at Cup of Joe Pod. You can email the show at cupofjoewrestlingshow@gmail.com. Folks, I went out this past weekend, and I got a craving for some fried chicken. And so I went to the local KFC, and it's always busy. And I don't know if they're remodeling, because the website said that you could go in, you couldn't eat there, but that you could go in and order and get your order to go. Well, I go to do that, and it said that their lobby was not reopening until May the 4th. And the drive-through line was about half a mile long. So then I went somewhere else, and they closed early. And so I said, if I go across the bridge to the next town over, they have a KFC. So I go there. Line wasn't too bad. And I order a 3-piece meal. And with my lifestyle changes, I'm off soda now. Completely off soda. Most of the time I go to places, their iced tea is not good. But I said, well, I'll get an iced tea. It's usually unsweetened. And so I ordered an iced tea. And so I go up and I pay and I get my food and I get my tea. And as I'm driving away, I put the straw in and I take a drink. And it was the absolute worst iced tea that I've ever had in my life. It was, I don't know if it was from a concentrate that you just add water to, or if they made iced tea and tried to sweeten it with honey, but didn't know the configuration, and so it was just not good. And I'm not the type of person to buy something and just throw it away, but I had to throw this away. Poured it down the sink and threw the cup away. It was just not good. And that seemed to be the luck that I was having going out and about this weekend. It just seems like there was nothing going right. So I came home and watched some wrestling, as you do. And today, we look at SummerSlam 1990 from the WWF. SummerSlam 1990, The Heat Returns, was shown on pay-per-view on August the 27th, 1990, from the Spectrum in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. There were 19,304 in attendance. We start out with our classic Vince McMahon opening.
The World Wrestling Federation presents a double main event. The Immortal Hulk Hogan versus 476 pounds of the Earthquake. Plus, World Wrestling Federation champion, the Ultimate Warrior, defends against ravishing Rick Rude in the confines of a steel cage.
Vince then welcomes us and new color commentator Roddy Piper. Jesse who? To SummerSlam. Hot Rod has a classic introduction.
Hello everyone, I'm Vince McMahon, and joining me, this is the reason for the roar of the crowd. It's Rowdy Roddy Piper. Wham bam SummerSlam, where bagpipes are hot and Baghdad's not. Brother, I'm here, let's get rowdy, huh?
I have remembered that for 30 years. They run down the double main event before throwing it to the first match. The Rockers, Shawn Michaels and Marty Jannetty versus Power and Glory, Hercules and Paul Roma with Slick. Hercules jumps Michaels before the match to cover the real injury that Michaels had. Roddy is doing a bit of heel work on commentary early. They do allude to Michaels' knee being hurt before he came to the ring. The crowd likes it when Jannetty makes the comeback. There are also some fans of Power and Glory in the crowd, and they like the finisher that they do to win as Roma pins Jannetty. They attack Michaels again after the match, and he is carried out. Sean Mooney interviews Mr. Perfect and Bobby Heenan about the Texas Tornado. They say they aren't worried. They do the "nobody beats Mr. Perfect" line, which I do like. Mean Gene Okerlund interviews Kerry Von Erich. He is just out of it here. Go back and watch his eyes. He also says "Tornado." Intercontinental Championship match. Mr. Perfect with Bobby Heenan versus the Texas Tornado. If Jesse were here, he would be livid that Mr. Perfect came out first, so I'm mad on his behalf. Perfect doing a fantastic selling job. It's all Von Erich, but Perfect finally comes back. Von Erich gets the claw and the discus punch and gets the pin and the title. Mean Gene interviews Mr. Perfect and Bobby Heenan, who are besides themselves. They vow to get the title back. Queen Sherry is introduced. She has some cat makeup on. Sweet Sapphire doesn't come out. Sherry wins their match by forfeiture. Mean Gene interviews Dusty Rhodes about Sweet Sapphire. There's a classic Dusty Rhodes Jim Duggan interplay about looking for Sapphire. Then Dusty gets off the immortal line about "that's not my business."
I don't mind telling you, Mean Gene, and everyone who's listening, I'm worried. I'm worried big time, because you've never done anything like this before. Hey, Hacksaw, have you seen Sapphire, baby?
No, I haven't, Dust, but we're all still looking for her.
Well, what about these gifts she's been receiving, Dusty? I know you've been concerned about the anonymous and certainly the lavish nature of them.
You bet I'm concerned, Gene, because nobody gets something for nothing. But that's not my business. It's Sweet Sapphire's business. And besides, she's been the happiest she's ever been. She got a diamond ring. She got a full-length mink coat. She got a diamond and sapphire necklace. She got a cruise around the world. She got a gold bracelet. And she got a brand new Cadillac. But baby, where is she? I'm sorry, Gene. I got to go and find Sapphire.
The Warlord with Slick versus Tito Santana. Roddy says a couple of Jesse Taco references, but mostly does his own thing. Warlord displays power moves. Roddy does a stereotypical Amos and Andy voice towards Slick, and I am uncomfortable. Stay away from that, Hot Rod. If you're going to make Warlord look good, this match is going way too long. Santana is getting a lot of offense in. Warlord wins with a power slam. Sean Mooney talks to Demolition, who are acting coy about which two members will be at ringside, and they call the LOD imposters. WWF Tag Team Championship match. 2 out of 3 falls. Demolition versus the Hart Foundation. Demolition come out first, so I'm glad Jesse isn't here. It's crush and smash. Mean Gene interviews the Hart Foundation. Jim Neidhart says they don't pay him to think. Bret Hart tells him to settle down. First fall, the Hart Foundation take over, and Vince tells us he can't tell Demolition apart even though there's a height difference and they look nothing alike. The crowd gets into it the closer to a fall it looks like they get. Demolition wins the first fall with the Demolition decapitation. Second fall, the crowd loses it over a close 2 count. Crush tackles the ref to prevent a pin and gets disqualified. Third fall, Axe sneaks down and gets under the ring. Some close counts in this fall. Axe and Smash trade places. Axe does the side Russian leg sweep on Bret Hart, a classic Bret move. Double team on Bret. The LOD come down to a big pop. They distract Demolition on the outside, and Bret Hart gets the pin. New champions. WrestleMania 7 commercial plays, and at this point, they are still planning on running the Coliseum. Mean Gene interviews the LOD. They want Demolition, and now they have their attention. The Hart Foundation come in and say they will take on anyone. Sean Mooney tries to interview Demolition, but they won't open the door. Mean Gene interviews Queen Sherry. She gloats about winning and puts down Sweet Sapphire. Mean Gene runs down the second half of SummerSlam. They show a possum as a Harlem sewer rat. Mean Gene interviews the Big Boss Man. He says he's here to serve law and order. Sean Mooney interviews Nikolai Volkov and Jim Duggan. Nikolai says that Jim Duggan is his idol. This will not end well for Nikolai. Mean Gene interviews Earthquake, Dino Bravo, and Jimmy Hart. Earthquake bounces while talking about Hulk Hogan and Tugboat while they show the attacks that they did on Hogan and Tugboat. Bravo calls him the Hearthquake. Sean Mooney interviews Jake Roberts. He says that Damien is hungry, and on a related note, I hate snakes. Bad News Brown versus Jake with Damien. The Big Boss Man is a special guest referee. Boss Man gets to come out last. Roddy says he is on Jake's side, and he hates snakes. I'm with you, Roddy. Bad News Brown hits Roberts with a chair on the outside, which, as we know from SummerSlam 89, is legal. Slow-paced match. Crowd chants DDT and Roberts signals it, but Brown counters it. He goes back to the chair, but gets disqualified by Boss Man. Tony and Jesse would be appalled. Brown jumps Boss Man. Damien comes out of the bag, and Brown bails. Another WrestleMania 7 promo. Mean Gene interviews Demolition. They are understandably mad at the LOD and the Hart Foundation. They call the LOD imposters again. The Brother Love show with Sergeant Slaughter. Sarge is anti-American, but not quite pro-Iraq yet. He presents Brother Love with the greatest American medal. Slaughter also declares war on Nikolai Volkov. Sean Mooney interviews the Orient Express and Mr. Fuji, who put down Jim Duggan and Nikolai Volkov. Volkov must be over. He has had two different heels talk about him back to back. Mean Gene tries to interview Sweet Sapphire, but she goes into a dressing room and won't talk to him. The Orient Express with Mr. Fuji versus Nikolai Volkov and Jim Duggan. Piper says he doesn't trust Nikolai. Duggan and Volkov sing God Bless America. It is a song. That's as much as I can say for their rendition. This match just doesn't interest me. Duggan and Volkov win. Mean Gene is with Dusty Rhodes, who wants Sapphire to open the door. Dusty Rhodes versus Randy Savage with Queen Sherry. The crowd loves Rhodes. Sean Mooney interviews Randy Savage while he's up on the throne. Savage says the rumors about Dusty Rhodes must be true. Ted DiBiase and Virgil come out and say everyone has their price, and that includes Sapphire. They say Sapphire hated this angle, as she loved being with Dusty Rhodes. Rhodes goes after DiBiase, but Savage jumps on him. Piper keeps putting down Rhodes. He's definitely more heelish on commentary than he would be later. Savage hits Rhodes with Sherry's purse and pins him. Sean Mooney tries to interview Ted DiBiase. He says there's nothing his money can't buy, as we see Rhodes running to catch the limo before it leaves. Piper asks what Rhodes was going to do if he got there. Hulk Hogan with Big Boss Man versus Earthquake with Jimmy Hart and Dino Bravo. Mean Gene interviews Hulk Hogan and the Big Boss Man. Hogan remembers Earthquake's attack and also the massive mailing list, cards and letters that he received. He also mentions Tugboat getting attacked. Separate entrances for Boss Man and Hulk Hogan. Boss Man has a bruise by his eye that was not there in the promo. Weird. Everyone is in at one point, but no disqualification. Earthquake gets the Boston Crab on, but Hogan gets to the ropes. Hogan later in a bear hug, and he pulls off pieces of the ref's shirt. I've never understood this moment. Earthquake hits several splashes, but Hogan kicks out. Hogan wins by count out. Hogan must pose. Earthquake gets hit several times with the chair post-match. Sean Mooney interviews Rick Rude and Bobby Heenan. Rude brings up Rocky Balboa since they are in Philadelphia and says that art will imitate life. Mean Gene talks to Dusty Rhodes. He says he offered up his innocence to Sapphire and she paid him in scorn. Yikes. Lord Alfred Hayes talks about the cage being put up. Mean Gene talks to Hulk Hogan. He says he will finish off Earthquake and get back to the #1 contender spot. He also adds a fourth demandment, Believe in yourself. Sean Mooney talks to Earthquake and Company. He has giant bloody marks on his back. They want Hulk Hogan and the Big Boss Man. Mean Gene interviews the Ultimate Warrior, who snarls his way through the interview. WWF Championship match. A cage match. The Ultimate Warrior versus Rick Rude with Bobby Heenan. Rude sells hard for Warrior. Piper puts Warrior down on commentary. Rude gets busted open. Heenan slams the door on Warrior, but Rude can't get the pin. Warrior gets the press, the splash, and climbs out to win. Warrior celebrates as they sign off from Philadelphia. You can follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. I am at @TheJoeyHarris. If you like the show, please leave a review in iTunes or Apple Podcasts. I would really appreciate it. Thank you for joining me this week. This is Joey saying so long from Stately, Maine Manor.
The Cup of Joe Wrestling Show is a production of Baby Kangaroo Media.